Again, Happy New Year, Greenville Rotary Club. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and declare best new project of the last 10 years in Greenville. Lisa Manjone suggested at our table, Kringle Holiday Village, of course. It's great to see such a good crowd here in the new year. Welcome to all of you. And we will proceed right away. And so I'd like to invite Beth up to deliver our invocation and pledge.
Thank you, Wade. If y'all would join me in a moment of prayer, let us pray. Creator of the universe, we are thankful for this day and all of its blessings and opportunities. As we begin a new year, we ask for guidance and direction in all that we think, say, and do. Be with our Rotary leaders this year, and also with those who lead our city, our state, and our nation. Give them discernment and compassion, wisdom and understanding as they make decisions that affect the lives of so many people. Keep us aware of our responsibility to others and to our own community and to the world. May we always do our best in serving others. May we always seek to leave this world a little better than we found it. Bless our fellowship today and bless this food and those who grew it and prepared it and served it. Amen. If you would stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Joel Jones. I'm going to stand in for Thomas to announce our visitors today. Get my glasses on. So we want to welcome Tina Ballinger. Tina, can you stand up? Welcome today, a guest of Paul Wickensheimer. We have Jamesa Selick. Did I say it right? Is it close enough? Who's also a guest of Paul Wickensheimer. Glad to have you today. Donna Raines, who I understand is not really a guest, but is a guest. Also, Anne Marie Shell. Is Anne Marie here? Anne Marie, glad to have you today. Jim Patterson. Is Jim here? Jim, a guest of Jim Puryear. Good to see you today. Bryce Smith. I know Bryce is here. I welcome Bryce when he came in. Good to see you today, Bryce. And he's a guest of Sarah Wiles Smith. Walter Kaufman. I do not see Walter. Katie Spillers. Katie is not here. Amanda Dowdle. Is Amanda here? She was unable to come. Well, we wish you were here. How about that? Kendra Williams, a guest of the club today. Good to see you, Kendra. And we have the mayor here as a special guest today, is the reason we have so many other guests here today. So all our guests, welcome today. It's good to see you.
Good afternoon. Ryan Thackeray here to deliver member news. For those who don't know me, when I am not here at Rotary, I work for the Nature Conservancy of South Carolina on the philanthropy team there. I'm proud to deliver our member news today. And today's member news is sponsored by Sunny Honda at Sun Trade Financial. Do you need a good financial advisor? Are you trying to determine how much money you could donate to the Nature Conservancy this year? Fellow Rotarian, Sunny Honda is your guy. Give Sunny a call, grab a seat next to him at lunch, or he can typically be found at Health and Happiness near the bar. Thanks for your sponsorship, Sunny, and your invoice is in the mail. On to member news. The upstate chapters of the South Carolina Restaurant and Lodging Association, say that 10 times fast, held their annual awards ceremony at the end of 2022. You're not surprised, I'm not surprised, but it is 100% worth celebrating that our fellow Rotarian and host of these lunches, the Fabian Unterzacher, was selected as the Hotelier of the Year. Certainly to receive this award at any time is a big deal, but to do so after coming out of 2 years of a challenging time for the hospitality and tourism industry is even more impressive. Well done, Fabian. Congratulations to you and your staff. We are grateful for all that you all do to make our Rotary Club meetings special. And Dave Carfelite, he's kind of like Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School. Not really, but kind of. He's a new adjunct professor at Furman University, teaching media to the students over there to keep him busy during retirement. Also, I've been made aware that it is Scott Powell's birthday today. Happy birthday, Scott. All he wants you to do is to put $1 in the cart bucket for his birthday day, is all he said. In other news, we probably had a Rotarian celebrating the addition of a new grandchild. We probably had another Rotarian that's received a job promotion. Another one of our members probably just got back from the trip of a lifetime, but they forgot to share that news with me. So don't forget, member news is a great way to share important information with our club. All member news can be sent to me at ryan.thackeray@tnc.org, and it will be included in these monthly member news talks here, as well as in the club's e-newsletter. So what are you waiting for? I don't get enough emails every day, so go ahead and drop me a message in my inbox if you have news to share. And don't forget, sponsorships for member news are always on sale, and a new deal for 2023, we're discounting these sponsorships in half. It used to be $0, it remains $0. Thank you all so much. Happy New Year.
Most of you know the mayor's bio. Native of Greenville, Greenville High School, University of South Carolina Law School, partner, Ainsworth, Sinclair, and Boyd, and head of the Immigration and Custom Practices, and service on city council since 1983 and mayor since 1995. When he ran for mayor, his goal was to make Greenville the most beautiful and livable city in America. This year, Condé Nast had us number 6. Ahead of us was Charleston, and 4 other, well, let's see. Ahead of us was, had a list, Aspen, Santa Fe, Alexandria, and Savannah. Pretty good company to keep. The list of projects since he became mayor is incredible. I should have put them up if I'd known we were going to talk at the table about the projects, because I had trouble figuring out what was the most, what was the best one. They range from Floor Field that we had Kringle Holiday Village at, to this building. This was one of the first projects that the city undertook after he was mayor. And then there's the Swamp Rabbit Trail and a lot of others. The slide shows what the world thinks of this city's successes. I had the privilege of serving for 4 years with Knox White on city council. He's a visionary, passionate about what he does, and incredibly creative in finding ways of getting things done. His fingerprint is on every one of those projects. On March 31st of this year, the mayor has got to decide whether he's going to rerun as mayor for an 8th term. Every day, I mean, he is one of the certainly the best mayor that Greenville's ever had, but on the short list of the great mayors anywhere. And yet every day somebody comes into his office complaining about something. It is a stressful, difficult job that he does phenomenally well. I know it's tempting not to rerun, but I don't know what the city would be like without Knox White's fingerprint on everything we do. Please give a warm Rotary welcome and a huge thank you to Knox White, Mayor of Greenville.
Well, thank you very much, George. Touche. Glad to be here today. Yeah, I voted for the holiday fair too. It's the most profound thing. And that was a great thing, by the way. That was really good. The weather cooperated, so very good. Congratulations on that. Did it have a good, was it successful? I haven't really heard the results and everything. I took my I have grandkids now, so we took them on that. And the train, of course, as you know, is a runaway smash hit. You got to keep the train. Maybe add a couple more lines perhaps to it. But it really was a wonderful thing, especially that. So thank you very much for that. It's always a special privilege, pleasure to come before the Rotary Club, this club in particular, every year. I love looking at Beth Paget, been doing this with Beth was president probably many times, but I always gave these remarks kind of special consideration. And I know this is kind of ancient history now, but it was at the Rotary Club meeting that I announced that we're gonna take down the Camperdown Bridge. And the only test that I had was if people don't totally start booing, et cetera, then I'll consider that a victory. And it was okay. Nobody stood up and cheered either, though. I came away thinking, okay, it might be okay. And but that was a dramatic moment, and I'll always appreciate that. And we chose a Rotary Club on purpose. Let's throw this out and see how people react. Take down the bridge in Creek Falls Park. Anyway, so I was thinking about today. I'm not going to do a lot during questions and answers. We can talk about some coming attractions. We have a lot of projects still out there, big projects, the conference center, downtown redevelopment issues, and things like that. But I want to do something a little bit different. We get a lot of inner city visits. People from other cities coming here to see Greenville. Very flattering. And recently we had Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They sent 114 people. The mayor, the council, and they spent a week here. And that's not unusual. It's just one of the big, Tallahassee did the same thing. The mayor, the council, 100 people. And I do the presentations about things, and sometimes somebody will be from Greenville will be there and they'll say, that's a really good presentation, but people in Greenville need to see it. I said, well, that's a good idea. So that's how this kind of evolved. I thought, well, I know this club has a lot of new people. In fact, you can ask the question, how many people have been in Greenville, say less than 10 years? Oh, okay. See, oh, grace. Okay, good. All right. So this will be old news to some people, but maybe it'll be a reminder. And I think this is a good chance to tell you a story. And this is about Falls Park and Unity Park, because I think history will record years from now that reclaiming of the Reedy River was the most dramatic and most game-changing thing the city did to make this a different kind of place. So it was one of the reasons Baton Rouge came here, et cetera. Oh, by the way, Baton Rouge, the mayor came up to me and said, we can't believe what you've done with that little river. We have a river called the Mississippi. And we don't do anything with it. And I was like, what? No, it's like the weather. It's just there. And they were inspired that maybe they need to, like Memphis does things with the river. And anyway, it's funny what people see. Russell Stahl was there, Russell, council member, and he in his course of his chit chat with them, he just kind of dropped in there among many comments as he was just sort of talking that Greenville won an award for being the most optimistic city in America. Now, Russell, I'm going to tell you the truth. When you said that to them, and I was sitting next to Russell, in my mind, I'm really kind of going, we get a lot of awards and things. I don't remember us being named the most optimistic city, but he did. We weren't optimistic. Ha ha ha. But you know what happened? That 140 people, it resonated. Oh my gosh, the first question, how can we be optimistic? I'm serious. And then I'm also serious that after the meeting was over, when you're walking out of the room, I had two people come up to me and they probably didn't hear anything I said. They wanted to talk more about that. When did Greenville become a city that's optimistic? I mean, it went on and on. I told Russell that so you forget how different communities are. And we should really value that. But they clearly Baton Rouge is not optimistic. Okay. I mean, it was a foreign concept to them. They also said, by the way, their LSU is in Baton Rouge, enormous LSU. No one stays in Baton Rouge. Duh. Well, so they need to focus on things like the river and maybe make people stay. So I started reflecting on these two projects because I had to give presentations, which makes you disciplined to sit down and say, how do we do this? What do we do it? And really, only a couple months ago, I began to reflect on the commonalities of the two projects. When I'm living them, I don't notice it, but looking back, I'm going, oh my gosh, the parallels are just uncanny. Falls Park, Unity Park. They're both the river, so in that sense, of course, they're alike. They're both stories about the river, but let me show you what I mean. This will be a good education too for those who are new to Greenville, didn't know the story of Falls Park. So starts with this. That is Seattle, Washington. In Seattle, Washington, fastest growing city in America until just recently, it's still number 2 or 3. In the 1980s, the mayor of Seattle and the business community and the newspaper announced, we're going to build a park. Seattle, this is the 1980s, is going to be growing fast. And we have a vast amount of property, about 70 acres, 60 acres actually, of Seattle. And we're going to make that our central park, 1980s. Much fanfare. They never did it. And the gist of a recent article in Bloomberg Business Magazine is today in Seattle, growth issues are number 1 issue. It's fastest growing city, got all kind of political contention now it didn't have before, et cetera, et cetera. And everyone in Seattle is saying the same thing. We could have had a park. Today, that same property is right there. Amazon took about 2/3 of it, and other people just took a little. What happened was a little bite here, a little bite there, oh, a little bite there, that won't matter. And suddenly the 60 acres became 40 acres, became 20 acres, it's gone. They could have had a park. Well, Greenville did it differently. In 1908, we're good at planning. We had a planning group come in from Boston, and they did a master plan for Greenville. I keep this plan on my desk. I've kept it there for 20 plus years. It's actually well written, has great pictures, and it's very much Greenville. They didn't even like billboards. I mean, this is before cars, and they're talking about take down your billboards. Who knew they had billboards? But in that plan, there was one thing they really liked about Greenville, was the river. And they say in the plan in 1908, if you do one thing, focus on your river, make it the centerpiece of your community. And they suggested, I know you can't see this exactly, 3 parks. One park, about 10 years later, became Cleveland Park. It says there, Reedy River Park. That's Cleveland Park. So about 10 years after the plan, Greenville did it. They created Cleveland Park. A floodplain area, it should be a park. Anything that floods, make it a park. And then they have another area up there around the waterfall, and they just rhapsodize about the waterfall. We've been to cities across America, and we've never seen a city with an urban waterfall. You have one. Well, it took us 100 years to do that. And look at this, top left, that is Unity Park. It's called Hudson Athletic Fields then. Also about 60 acres, by the way, same property size as Seattle. So we start on the falls. So the interesting thing about the falls is in previous Greenville history, truly it was the centerpiece of downtown. This is 1910 or something. No, excuse me, it's 1887. It was some Furman students and the women's college. And people did go to the falls. It was the most important thing. If you lived in Greenville in the 1800s, and somebody came from out of town, the first place you took them was to the waterfall. How about that? It's repeated in diaries and comments all the time. But the river became polluted in the 20th century with all the textile mills up and down the river. And those who are natives of Greenville can tell you it's true. The river actually changed colors depending on the dye put into it. Sometimes it'd be bright red, green, purple. And in 1960, because everybody had moved away from the river, it was polluted, it smelled bad. Why go there? The highway department, the state highway department, put a 4-lane highway directly on top of the waterfall. It obliterated over the course of 40 years, even the memory of the waterfall for most people in Greenville. And it would stand there, and hardly anyone complained in 1960. Well, there was an exception. And this is where the story gets interesting. In 1967, oh, there's the bridge again. There's no West End. There's no river, really. Nobody went down there. In 1967, Harriet Weich, Tommy Weich's wife, president of the Carolina Foothills Garden Club. You do not mess with the Carolina Foothills Garden Club. Then or now. I love this picture. This comes from a Greenville Piedmont, that was the afternoon paper article, profiling Harriet, big full-page article, and the club, and what they're up to, and has pictures of Harriet and others with their pearl necklaces pulling weeds at a place called Reedy River Falls. And Harriet is quoted in the article in 1967. So here again, we're talking 6 or 7 years after the bridge was put there. She has the audacity to say in print, in the newspaper, that the bridge is, I'm quoting, a concrete monster. And that this area, this waterfall is so unique that it could be and should be an oasis in the heart of the city. Another quote from her. And so the Garden Club in the course of the 60s and 70s, even with the bridge still there, hired planners and they began to adopt that area, to clean it up, fix it up, and frankly, to pull a lot of weeds. And they would do that for a long time to come. Back up. And most people thought they were crazy. That would be an understatement. Harriet was around long enough to adopt younger people. Russell's sister, Pedrick, was prime on that list, which kept the legacy alive, if you will, the torch for doing these kind of things. And the Garden Club would do this. They even hired a landscape architect from Boston, another Boston connection originally, to do a rendering later of what it could look like. The bridge was still there. And this is where the story picks up. So meeting with the Garden Club, now I want to be honest with you now, after I was reelected, met with Harriet. The river was cleaner. The textile mills had closed. People were beginning to say, this waterfall is amazing. Again, probably 80% of the people in Greenville, maybe 90, had never seen the waterfall though. It was hard to actually go down and look at it. But those who did were quite mesmerized by it. And out-of-towners always were. I remember that in particular, if you could take somebody down there. And so they drew this rendering. Andrea Means, I'm sure you're looking at it and thinking, wow, it really looks that way. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? That's a good vision. So we started the campaign to remove the bridge. A lot of people involved in that. But it was a hard sell. And because here's the deal. And it took me a while to understand this during the process. This is around the year 2000. Year 2000. We were basically telling people in Greenville, let's spend $18 million to build a beautiful park around a waterfall you've never seen. Trust us. And most people honestly just didn't at all. It was a tough period of time, but we kept working at it. A game changer was when I went down to the Greenville News, and Beth, I know I met with Tom Inman actually. He wasn't even, wasn't his area. And I was trying to think of whether it was Steve Brandt or who would have been the publisher at that time, year 2000. I said, we have this rendering of the park. Would the Greenville News please put it in the paper? This is before the internet. We knew there was a disconnect here because everybody's talking about the bridge. We needed to switch the subject from the bridge to the park. This is what you get. They ran it on the front page of the Greenville News on Sunday. Bingo. It had a dramatic impact. It was kind of slow and subtle, but I could tell when I was speaking to groups and all for the first time ever, some people began to say, yeah, but this might be a worthwhile thing with what they get in return. Because otherwise it was all about, why would you take down a perfectly good bridge? And that's the quote everybody used, perfectly good bridge. It's called the Camperdown Bridge, but you would think it was called the perfectly good bridge. And okay, so there we are. We got a new city council, got some new people on the council. We had one who was so new, she told me later that when she voted to take it down, she didn't understand it was controversial. Whoa, she got hit pretty hard later, but we voted to take it down. I had quite a story behind how the highway department gave it to us. And so we went from, in 2002, 2003, we went from that to that. Now, when the park opened in 2004, officially opened, the other phenomenon you have to understand if you're new is for most people walking across the bridge, they all came down to see it, they had never seen the waterfall until the day the walls came, the fences came down and they could walk across the bridge. Of course, it included the pedestrian suspension bridge designed by Miguel Rosales, world-class designer, at that time kind of unknown. He's a lot better known now, does projects all over the world. Did the Zachem Bridge in Boston. Miguel is a world-class designer. There he is. And he designed our bridge. We used a first-class designer. You'll see a parallel here with Unity Park in a minute. And Harriet lived to see it. That's the thing one time. Yeah. She's beautiful, isn't she? This is what the South Main Street looked like directly across the street from the park when it opened. Within 4 or 5 years, it changed to that. Happened really fast. And that's the beginning of the Swamp Rabbit Trail too. we use this picture when out of town people are here, we say, find your falls. What do you have that makes you unique and different? Uni Park. Well, this area was really in Greenville's backyard. Again, a lot of similarities. Most people in Greenville never been here. You couldn't find it on a map. That didn't change but a couple years ago when the Swamp Rabbit Trail went through it. But this is what it really looked like on the ground. Lots of concrete, decrepit buildings, lots of crime. You didn't go there at night for sure. Right in the heart of the city, though. Flooded all the time on the concrete everywhere. We had our public works department down there and all the vehicles flooded. And of course, putting a gasoline in trucks right next to the river was never a smart idea, but they did. This picture is taken from the early 50s, but it could have been the 40s and the 30s and the 60s. The area over time accumulated all these. It was just Greenville's backyard to put anything you didn't know what else to do with it. So what was back there during 40 years? A women's jail, women's stockade. Love that title. It's a stockade, it's not a jail. Women's stockade for bad women, right there at the top. Our public works facility would later take that place, and that's trucks and vehicles. Probably one day I went down there this is when I'm mayor. There was like 15 wrecked police cars. 15 wrecked police cars just strewn all over the area. As the city manager, how the police chief operate with 15 fewer cars? But anyway, Meadowbrook Baseball Park would come later. There's a history there I'll tell you about in a minute. Police shooting range is interesting. I never heard of this one. This came up later. We had a firing range down there just a few yards away from the only African-American park in the town that you had a firing range. And there was a story there, but people had to grab the kids and go. And you had not one, but 2 city dumps. 2. A lot of environmental hazards. So in the 1930s, Elijah Holloway, picture on the left there, representing the southern side neighborhood, which is the neighborhood historically adjacent to the park on the north side, actually had the audacity to go to City Hall, in 1938 as a black neighborhood leader, and to confront the mayor and council over the conditions in their neighborhood park. The only African-American park in the whole city was a little piece of property, and it was surrounded by all of those uses. And then the city took about half of the park and created a baseball stadium. And in 1930, that was 1938. In 1939, he came back to City Hall, but this time, this is where Greenville's story gets interesting. 1939, Reverend Holloway came back to City Hall with the president of the Chamber of Commerce standing right by his side, and a who's who of the Greenville business community with him to basically say what the city's done is wrong. And in 1939, the city actually went, okay, we got to clean this area up and we'll give you a park. World War II intervenes. We do see some progress toward the park, by the way. They were actually searching for property, trying to figure it out. We saw several newspaper clippings, but World War II intervenes, no park. There's the article, Plea for Negro Park, pressed by advocates, 1939. So here we go. We finished Falls Park. I didn't mention the name Tom Keith. Tom Keith is a local designer of Falls Park, good friend of many of us here. He's no longer with us. Tom literally came in my office in 2004 when we just finished Falls Park that he had put his heart and soul into for years, holding up the 1908 plan and said, now we got to build the other park. We just finished one park. He's talking about the 1908 plan. And so Tom came up with this, and look at this aerial of that area then, trucks and vehicles, a baseball stadium's no longer there, but he's still got a mess down there. And so he did that, a depiction of what it might look like. If we could get all the junk out of there, make green space, put some development on the edges, that was Tom's vision. And this is about 2008 or 9. And we started showing it to people, just like the Falls Park story. We started showing people visions of what it could look like. But most people, again, had no idea where it even was. Well, wasn't getting much traction, especially with the southern side neighborhood, which I thought was kind of odd. Mary Duckett came on the scene. I draw the parallels here. I didn't understand this till later. She's my Harriet. She comes to me and says, Mayor, here's the problem. Our neighborhood would love to have a park down there. Did you know that in 1939 a promise was made for a park? I did not know that. I never heard that story. No one outside that community knew that story. She said, well, let me tell you the story. And she told me her version of it. She said, city always puts its junk in our backyard. So even though you got great plans to have a park, we've been sort of done in by the city before, and the city didn't live up to its promises, and we're not a part of the process. And she was absolutely right. So we basically said, in all due respect to Tom Keith, we can put that aside and start over again. So we did. It'll probably surprise you how long ago this was. And Mary, over time, more and more over time, became, and still is, sort of the wind beneath the sail. We would not have a park. We would not have a park without Mary. And so we started a series of neighborhood meetings and said, hey, we've got this concept, but what do you think? Do you want to do it? And then, more importantly, what would you like it to look like? Tom had his ideas. They had some different ideas. Lots and lots of neighborhood meetings. This is 2013. You have to have a lot of patience in this job. God. In 2019, we were actually, this concept that Tom Keith had, if you go back in Tom Keith's picture, I want to show you something like Tom's picture. Even Tom's version had a tower in the middle. See it? Because it needs a vertical. It's very flat down there. He said, you need a vertical. And as Tom said, we need a Liberty Bridge for this park. What will it be? What will it be? Well, we're looking at the neighborhood in 2019. Hundreds of people participated in this, by the way. They very much wanted that signature tower for the symbol of the neighborhood. That's Lily and Brock Fleming going up in a bucket truck to check on the height. Is it high enough? No, that's the right height. We wanted high enough to see the mountains. That's what they all wanted. Got to be high enough to see the mountains, because Stacy Mills on the left, Reverend Stacy Mills, president of Urban League now, said at that time, most of the kids in our neighborhood had never seen the mountains. And I said, what? No, never seen the mountains. He said, we always take kids up to the mountains, and it's very obvious they'd never seen the mountains before. They're going to see the mountains now. It was 2019. A lot of participation. Chandra Dillard, 2019, in the whole process. And that became the new vision. It still changed some of the park. And again, a lot of green space. They wanted green space. Check that box. They wanted a great playground. And it was from these neighborhood meetings that a bunch of kids in the southern side neighborhood said, we want a spray park. That was not in the plan. That's expensive. That's why we have a spray park in the plans. Down to the detail. So there's the new vision of Unity Park. That was the postcard vision, just like the postcard of Falls Park. We had postcard visions of this park. And what's great is how much it all came together. Of course, the Reedy River was completely renovated and restored to be a proper, from an environmental standpoint, properly rebuilt. All the green space. Y'all know this. I thought you might find this kind of interesting. So here's the vision of the playground area, which is quite unique and authentic and different, and the reality of it. Kids don't go down the slides. They like to slide down the hill. So you never know until you build it. If you've been out there, you know what I mean. There you go again. Came out really, really well. And there's the vision of the spray park. And there's the reality of the spray park. Yeah. Smash hit in that regard. And great gathering place. The diversity in the park since the day it opened has been profound and almost unexpected. The story of Reverend Holloway and kind of the background is better known than I ever thought could be possible, because we've told that story to so many. They embrace it as the promise made in 1939. And wetlands is under construction. It's about 80% complete now, by the way. You go down there. And we have this is Paul Endress of Los Angeles. He was the suggestion of Miguel Rosales. He said, Miguel said, I do bridges. I don't do towers and things. Check this guy. He's an international architect with great works around the country and the world. And he's the designer of the elevator in the middle. So George Fletcher can get up there. And you bet Mary was there to see it. There's Mary Duckett on opening day. So the parallels are really just uncanny. Lessons learned, especially when dealing with, people are had to be shown things. The vision of Falls Park told us that we needed to show a vision of Unity Park, because people don't even know where it is. We got to show it. We got to tell the history. They won't know it. So we learned that lesson. I certainly learned that lesson. And second, I've learned you have to have a champion. You got to have a champion. And there were periods of time during Unity Park where I bemoaned the fact that I didn't have Harriet or anyone like her. And then suddenly I realized, but I do, we do. And Mary, as Russell can attest, I don't think there's ever been a meeting touching on Unity Park at City Council that she hadn't she isn't in the room. She and Stacy Mills, they're still at it. And there's our tribute to Reverend Holloway. It says a promise fulfilled. Yeah, did y'all catch in the news that we found his family? This, 1939, Reverend Holloway, he was college educated, had like 9 kids. We thought 9 kids, they all went to college. 1939, all the children went to college. They got out of Greenville, by the way. Yeah. He was the first black postman in Greenville, college educated. So he knew, that's probably though I knew the Chamber of Commerce president. I bet he knew everybody as a retired postman. We found his family. His great-grandson is with Wells Fargo Bank. He's like chief of international finance with Wells Fargo Bank. We found him, and that opened the floodgates. We found the whole family. So about 30 of them came to the grand opening. And they only knew one, and they lived all over the country. They lived in Los Angeles. One of them lived in the Caribbean. One lived in New York. Some of them didn't know each other, but a lot of them didn't. They all had one thing in common. They all knew that their great-grandfather was the first black postman in Greenville, South Carolina, wherever that is. That's all they knew. And now they learned his whole history as a community activist. Another kind of sidebar thing. Think about River Place coming in for Falls Park. Okay, Unity Park is going to have this. I know this isn't glamorous a shot. We have property in the edge of this park. So as you probably heard, with all the concerns about the changing in the neighborhood, which was already changing rapidly before the park ever was built, the city owns all the property on the north side, all those orange pieces. We actually own more than this depicts. We bought additional land. And we donated, even though that's beachfront property worth $8 or $9 million, we donated it to the Housing Trust Fund for Affordable Housing. And so we're building all affordable housing up there. Greenville News ran some articles yesterday. Just did he mention that the city's building the largest footprint of affordable housing in the entire city. And by the way, those properties that are in orange, this is interesting too. There hasn't been a house on those properties since 1956. That area's been sort of narrow. The bottom section will look more like River Place. We're going to be about this year. We'll put an RFP out to sell those properties on the bottom. And if you look at that, we used to, Tom Keith had his vision of little apartments. You might remember that. Oh no, we have hotels that want to come. We have a school that wants to come there. It's going to be mixed use. We're still going to require 20% set aside for affordable housing. But it's going to have a real mix of uses right across from the tower. And this will be a story to watch next year as we go through a process of choosing a developer who will buy the property from us in order to develop it like the county did with County Square. And by the way, that property in that area used to be appraised at something like $6 or $7 million. It's now appraised at $25 million. So we'll do well on that. And what we spend the money on after we get it is a good policy question for council. But we'll see some great uses there. So that's the parallels. I mean, so look at the Unity Park, the champion that was involved, the economic development that's going to happen afterwards with on the edges of the river. It's going to be quite spectacular. And that's the story of Falls Park and Unity Park. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, Greenville News is totally out of control. When Unity Park opened, I don't mind just telling you this because we're sensitive about this. Mary Duckett would be fit to be tied to tell you. Do you know that the day, 3 days after Unity Park opened, with all the celebration and all the coming together that went on, they ran a front page article about a man in Malden with his picture, and he said, and the quote was that he did a story, and there are sex offenders and child molesters within a mile of Unity Park. That was the front page article. And now for people who live in the southern side neighborhood, they didn't take that very well. They were pretty infuriated. Well, the latest little thing is we had this big flood the other day, and they have a picture of Unity Park surrounded by water, like it flood. It's supposed to flood. It's in a floodplain. The park was designed meticulously redesign of the Reed River. It has collection pond. The whole park, if you look at an aerial of it, you can see it really obvious. It's collection ponds. That's what it was configured. The whole, see, everything in the park was dug up, all the environmental stuff taken out of there. It was reconfigured to collect water. The water stayed in all the collection ponds. We were astounded. It was absolutely a beautiful thing to see, which meant that Cleveland Park and downtown didn't get anything like the flooding they would have normally gotten. And by the way, we have a long history in this, because we know exactly where it used to flood. It used to go up to Mayberry Street and cross Mayberry Street, and didn't even get anywhere near Mayberry Street. And of course, the playgrounds and all were totally dry, everything. And within one day, the water was gone. So yeah, it worked out really well. Renewed my faith in engineers. I mean, I just thought, wow, this is really amazing. And by the way, the Croc Center next door, they built theirs earlier. They had the same thing. It performs really well too. Swells and things that are intended to absorb the water when we have these events. Yeah, Gust Road, Lawrence Road. Yeah, we spend a lot of our time, downtown always gets depressed, but we spend a lot of our time on the corridors around the city. And that's kind of where, really kind of where the action is in terms of growth, because that's where the neighborhoods are and the population and such. So all of them are planned. Gust Road just underwent a traffic calming reduction, which has worked out really well. We're looking at that, and these same experts we hired for that are looking at other sections of Augusta Road to see how that would work. Lawrence Road is probably the biggest one to watch. You can see it happening. Big changes there because of the Swamp Rabbit Trail, which should open in a few months. And people are buying properties on Lawrence Road, very tired section of a mile there, and it's really going to pop. Here's my prediction on Lawrence Road between, say, Washington Street and Antrim Drive. Very tired area. You know, with a little push and shove by the city, we work like, I want to underground the utilities, number one, and widen the sidewalks. And we've already done the signage. You go down that street, you'll see the signage in most businesses has changed. That area could look kind of like Travelers Rest. You drive through it and it's sort of nonstop restaurants and really interesting shops and all, very Travelers Rest-like. So that's how Lawrence Road could evolve, which is an amazing thing, because Lawrence Road looked anything like that a couple of years ago. Yeah. We have two good infrastructure projects that I'm really excited about. Church Street Bridge, we are going to have something on that publicly in a few weeks. Working with the State Highway Department, they came to us with the news a couple of years ago that, hey, the Church Street Bridge is in bad shape. Then they came back and said, it's in worse shape than we even thought it was. Don't mean to scare you, but I'm not sure you want to drive down that in a tractor trailer. I've seen the report. I'm just telling you. So they're going to renovate it. They don't have the money, nor they did the wish. They're going to keep the basics so they can keep it open and to be renovated. So we got involved because if you're going to renovate it, go time out. Let's talk about what we want to see. So we're going to see a wide sidewalk on one side of the bridge that'll be with planters as barriers and new light fixtures. It's actually going to look really nice below the bridge, on top of the bridge. It'll be a pedestrian opportunity. In other words, you could also ride bikes across it as well. The other one is the connection between Main Street and the Heritage Green area. Long ago, that should have been done, but it's going to finally we're going to take out a lane of traffic, and it's going to have a nice wide sidewalk on both sides of the street with lots of big trees, and you'll have the tree cover that you have on Main Street extended down there all the way to Heritage Green, and then a better connection over there. So both those are going to be really good infrastructure connectivity projects that we don't currently have. Now I'll do one more. Sure. Yes, sir. Oh, the conference center. Meet again next week. Here's what we have on the conference center. We have property. I mean, wonderful property. You can't believe this, right on the river, right next to the Embassy Suites Hotel. It's the only last remaining piece of property on the river. Perfect place for a conference center. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, if you have visitors here for meetings, put you in the middle of all the hotels, all the restaurants. Can't beat that. We have $26 million from the state of South Carolina. We have about $35 million committed by the county. And that was the old county council, by the way. Amazing. And the city, we use hospitality tax, and I know it's kind of getting the weeds, but right now the Falls Park bond, the bond for Falls Park expires next year. Perfect timing. So the amount of money, which is about $1.5 million, $2 million a year that we put toward the Falls Park bond expires. So we're just going to move that over to the conference center. Same, so exactly the same. We get about 18 to 19 million in hospitality tax. This is 2 million out of the 19 million. So we have revenue streams. The issue now is, what is the cost? And we have a great design, big ballrooms and all this kind of stuff. But we're going to probably still have to wrestle with, okay, even with all these resources, do we have the money to do this? We don't, we're going to have to figure out a way to make it smaller. So that's kind of where it stands. But great spot to do that. So Greenville's got some good projects still ahead. Unity Park on that Mayberry Street's a good one to watch, and getting that right's important. And the conference center, those two certainly big ones. Okay, well, thank you. Great pleasure and honor to be here today. Thank you.
Mayor White, thank you so much for being here. I hope you know that we in this club and individually as Rotarians take very seriously our commitment to work for the betterment of this community. And we want to particularly recognize and thank you, Russell Stahl and others on council for your work. We know that it's a true sacrifice to be in public service, and thank you for those efforts. One of those, yeah, well, let's have another round of applause. One of our efforts to work for the betterment of our community is, of course, our adopted elementary school, Alexander Elementary, and in honor of Mayor White, we'll be donating this book to their library, The Smart Cookie. There are a lot of smart cookies in this room, so we'll get Mayor White to sign this to the kids at Alexander Elementary. A few things to have on your radar as we look at this new Rotary or this new calendar year and opportunities in our club. Of course, January 16th, Health and Happiness at California Dreaming. January 19th, yeah. Susie's over there giving a shout out. January 19th, we'll have coffee and conversations at Grateful Brew at 10 a.m. And then our next regular club meeting will be on January 24th, and we'll be welcoming our district governor, Joyce Moran. And in connection with her visit, I would like to very strongly encourage you to, if you are not already a benefactor of the Rotary Foundation, I would like to present as many certificates as possible to her. All you have to do is make a pledge to include a gift to the Rotary Foundation of at least $1,000 in your estate planning documents. I would love to have a group of these to present to her. I've already asked the board. I will be presenting her a certificate from me, and I'd love to have a set of these to hand to her in recognition of our work in this club. So Jenny has these conveniently printed out for you. If you are not already a Rotary benefactor, it just takes $1,000. Of course, you can give far more than that. But again, I think that would be a great way to thank District Governor Joyce for her service. And as you're thinking about this new year, you're thinking, what should my resolution be, right? We're all making New Year's resolutions. Here's what your resolution should be. To get your 3 sticker, get someone to discover Rotary. We have these cards on your table. Membership is always a priority in your club. If you don't have a resolution yet, resolve to get your 3 sticker like all the other cool kids in this room. And then you'll be one of the cool kids too, and we'll welcome you into our select group. So get someone to discover Rotary, volunteer if you hadn't yet at Alexander Elementary. We could probably even figure out still something for you to do for Kringle. So that's all that it takes. Those are the asks. And remember to pass the cart bucket. Dave Carfolite is reminding me right now, that's on your table. So pass the cart bucket. And I think those are all the things on my agenda. So pass the cart bucket and please stand and join me in the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you for being here.